So the previous week we went through the etiquettes of performing or the adab of performing one's need when using the restroom. We completed that chapter, so today it's Faslun fil Wudu, the chapter of wudu. So the author writes, Fara'idul Wudu. So the first thing he specifies is the fara'id of wudu, for obvious reasons, because if the fara'id of wudu, they are completed, then the wudu is valid, and one can offer salat with that wudu, and there are other acts of devotion also that are linked with a valid wudu. So fara'id al-wudu in the Hanafi school, arkan al-wudu arba'atun wa hiya fara'iduhu. So the arkan of wudu, the pillars of wudu, they are four. The pillars of wudu are four. And these are the fara'id, the mandatory acts that one cannot do without. So these four have to be done. If these four are done, then the wudu is complete. The wudu is complete. There's nothing more that needs to be done, in the sense that the wudu is valid by washing these four body parts. Okay. So al-awwal, غسل الوجه وحده طولا من مبدأ سطح الجبهة إلى أسفل الذقن وحده أرضا ما بين شهمة الأذنين والثاني غسل يديه مع مرفقيه والثالث غسل رجليه مع كعبيه والرابع مسح ربع رأسه وسببه استباحة ما لا يحل إلا به وحكم الدنيوي وحكم الأخروي الثواب في الآخرة. Okay. So the author is saying over here that the first of these that has to be washed is the face. Now, exactly how much of the face? Because you and I, we might have a different definition of what constitutes the face. Right? I might say, well, the face is inclusive of certain area. You might say, well, no, the face is something entirely different. So what constitutes the face? So the author says that the limit of the face lengthwise is from the start of the top of the forehead, which is generally from where the hairline begins. Okay, from where the hairline begins, and to the bottom of the chin. So right below the chin, this area. So the chin, move that, right? Move your finger and go to the soft area. So up to that point, that needs to be washed, right? So from the top of the head, right, from where the hairline begins to below the chin, the soft portion. So that's the length. What is the width? The width is between the two earlobes. So this is the width. So the whole thing like this, up to the earlobes. Okay, all of that has to be washed. Okay? And the definition, when we say wash, because sometimes you might come across a situation where water is inadequate. For example, when you're in an airplane or a train. So there might be scarcity of water, right? Or in that kind of situation, you might want to use limited water because you don't want to inconvenience the person who's going to use the restroom after you, right? So in that kind of situation, what do you do? So you have to still wash, but you can suffice with that much washing that a couple of drops, they fall. A couple of water droplets, they fall. So you don't have to go all out. You know how sometimes we go all out and, we use excessive water and we splash water and it is as if we're taking a shower. Instead of doing wudu, we're taking ghusl. Right? This is a very common thing that we see in the masjids today, right? That, somebody goes into the area for wudu. When they come out, the entire area is all wet, as if they've taken a shower. You don't have to be that excessive. when it comes to wudu. You can use limited amount of water, and the objective is still attained. So the first fard, the first mandatory act is the face. So from where the hairline starts to below the chin, from one earlobe to the other. والثاني غسل يديه مع مرفقيه. The second is to wash the hands with the arms, right? مع مرفقيه, right? So the elbows are included. Mirfaq is elbow. So when you wash, you have to wash the entire arm with the elbow, okay, at least once. And by the way, this is all one time. So every square centimeter of the face, it has to be washed. Every square centimeter of the arm has to be washed with the elbows, and at least one time. One time is fard. So that's the second fard, right? The third appendage that needs to be washed. غسل رجليه مع كعبيه. The third is to wash the feet with the ankles. So the ankles are included. Washing the feet with the ankles are included. So if the feet are not washed or they remain dry, then the wudu will not be complete. So the feet have to, and again, it has to be washed at least once. And finally, rabi', the fourth fard, and this is the last fard, is mashu rub'i ra'sihi. The fourth pillar is to wipe a quarter of the head. A quarter of the head. So the Prophet ﷺ, he wiped his head, and a quarter is generally the amount. When you take your hand, you put it on the head, that's a quarter. Right? That's going to be a quarter. So that much has to be wiped. And this is fard. This is fard. So these are 4 fara'id of wudu. So according to the Hanafi school, there is nothing more than these 4 fara'id. So the first is washing the arms. The first is washing the face from where the hairline begins to below the chin, from one earlobe to the other. Right? That constitutes the face at least one time. The second is washing the arms, both of them, right first, left first, once, right? Elbows included. The third in sequence is masah of the head, a quarter of it at the least. And the fourth is washing the feet, ankles included, at least one time. Okay. And the sababul wudu, the reason for wudu, istibahatu ma la yahillu illa bihi wa hukm dunyawi. The reason why we do wudu is to make permissible those actions that are invalid except if a person is in the state of wudu. That is why we do wudu. So there are certain actions that we cannot do except if we are in a state of wudu. What are some of those actions? Some of those actions are that when we offer our salat, when we do tawaf, right? When we do tawaf, it is a requirement to have wudu. When we want to touch the mushaf, when we want to touch the Quran cannot be touched without wudu. وَهُوَ حُكْمُ الدُّنْيَوِي. So this is its ruling pertaining to exclusively this life, that if we want to do something that requires wudu, then we have to perform the wudu, and then that active devotion can be done. وَحُكْمُ الْأُخْرَوِي. In the hereafter, what is the benefit? الثواب في الآخرة. That we can attain reward from Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. We can attain reward from Allah Azza wa Jalla. This is the reason why we do wudu in this world. And we'll stop over here and inshallah continue next week. Jazakumullah khair. Yes.
Right. So when you look the feet, especially challenge when we are traveling, right?
Yeah.
Just try to wipe it with our hand. Put a little water and just wipe it. Is that enough, or we have to have droplets?
Yes. So there has to be droplets. There has to be droplets that fall. At least 2 drops. At least 2 drops have to fall for it to be considered as washing. Otherwise, the definition would be that of wiping. Yeah. So if we want,
we are immediately in the car. So when we try to step out, it's already cold, and
yes.
But I do personally use try to wash, eat the water and
right.
wipe it.
Yes.
Like you said, droplets.
I actually, I always thought about this, that there might be some difficulty and hardship. When I went to Turkey, I went in the winter. Right. Over there, I've seen the Turks do wudu with cold water. They don't have a warm water system in any of the masjids there, as far as I know. So I went to specifically Sulaimaniya Jami. So this masjid is an imperial masjid that was built in the time of Sulaiman Qanuni by his chief architect, Ma'mar Sinan. You would think that a masjid that large would have a system where, there's hot water, but none of the masjids have hot water over there. None of them. So people, it's 25 degrees. So I went in November, 25 degrees on that day. And people at Fajr time are doing wudu with cold water. I saw one gentleman, and this was in another masjid called Mihrima Sultana Masjid. She was the daughter, I think she was the daughter of Suleiman. So this masjid was in Uskudar. So this one gentleman, definitely he was from abroad. He was not a Turk. So he was wiping on his regular socks. And one Turk said, haram, haram, haram. Take off your sock. So the person, he didn't understand Turkish because the guy is talking in Turkish. So, but I understood that he's saying haram, haram, haram. Mamnu. He's saying mamnu. This is not allowed. So this guy had to take off his sock, and then he washed his feet. It's doable. It can be done. The point I'm trying to make, it can be done. It's not like the end of the world. It's a different situation if you're on the plane or something. If you're on the plane, then you can exercise certain dispensations. Then it would be permissible, but I would still repeat my salat. Or for example, if you're on your feet, you're working somewhere and it's not possible. Like for example, if you're a surgeon or something, if you're a surgeon and you're constantly on your feet, then there might be some dispensation that can be given where you can do masa on regular socks, right? But to kind of all the way avoid it and just do masa on regular socks, I don't think it's permissible.
There's no dispensation in the Hanafi madhab.
There's no dispensation absolutely in the Hanafi madhab. Even in the Maliki madhab, no dispensation. The Maliki madhab is very strict on this. They only allow masa on leather socks exclusively. Forget thick socks. Forget socks that have leather sewn into them. Forget those socks. They only allow masa on leather socks exclusively. The Shafi madhab too. Right? Same thing.
In Hanafi, there is
It's only the Hanbali madhab. But the problem with the Hanbali madhab is that, when you ask the scholar, they themselves they don't know the criteria that how much is allowed. Actually, in the Hanbali madhab, which allows masa on regular socks, there are some conditions associated with it. The first condition being that the sock can't be visible. I mean, it can't be, the skin can't be visible through the sock. That's the first condition, and it has to stand on its own. So the scholars who give this dispensation, they conveniently omit the conditions. I mean, that's irresponsible. And that's just shoddy research and academics. So at least mention the whole thing, mention the entire school. Otherwise, don't quote them. Don't quote the Hanbali madhab. Why are you quoting the Hanbali madhab for no reason if you don't know it? It's irresponsible and it's an injustice and disservice to the madhab. Yes.
I think in Hanafi that on these songs you can do masa, but if you are able to walk certain distance without being torn apart,
With socks.
like these ones.
No.
No?
Regular socks, it would not be
And the
permissible.
formula is like the water should not penetrate, but there is no salt.
Yeah, that's not a condition in the Hanbali madhab. That's a condition in ours.
What is the rule in Hanafi?
No, it's not allowed. It is not allowed.
It has to be leather.
It has to be leather, or it has to be so thick. It has to be so thick that water cannot penetrate. So I would say, the socks that you would purchase at LL Bean, they're quite thick. They're extremely thick socks for winter. Yes, LL Bean socks. On that, masa might be permissible. I haven't looked into it, and nor have I tried it. But those socks are quite thick. So they may be permissible on those socks. But again, it's not something that I would do. I'm just basing this off of, the feel of the sock and the thickness of the sock.
Is khuffain
Khuffain is leather.
made of leather?
Yes, khuf is leather. Khuf the ta'rif, the definition of khuf is leather. Yeah. And then there is muna'alain, right? Muna'alain. So muna'alain are those socks that are made of fabric, but they have leather sewn into them.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's muna'alain. So you'll see these socks in Pakistan.
Coming back to this varieties that you explained,
Yes.
is the intention of that is to be clean or to salon?
The intention related to this world is to make those things which require wudu to be permissible. So the things that require, the things that, the salat,
Yeah.
right? So it mentions, the author mentioned, istibaha ma la yahillu lahu, to make permissible those things which are otherwise not permitted except with wudu. That's related to this world. Ukhrawi is thawab. Related to the hereafter is thawab. It's the reward from Allah Azza wa Jal.
So that's about this fara'id of wudu.
Yes, yes. And the wudu itself, yes.
Our question comes like, let's say, it may be a little bit out of the topic, like in Shia, they do the masa on feet.
Yeah, that's not allowed. It goes
But
against.
That's not allowed, but how about if someone prays, let's say you come over here and there is a jamaat of, let's say, Ahl Tashayyu, can you join them?
No,
Because
no. Because first of all, their aqidah is not correct. Their aqidah and their belief, their creed is not correct.
But let's say just talk about this washing their feet.
Mm.
If that is fat, and if someone is missing fat, that means
The wudu is not complete. The wudu is invalid. It would not be permissible to do wudu. I mean, it would not be permissible to offer salat behind them.
So prayer is not permissible.
Prayer is not permissible. Yeah. Not just because of the wudu being invalid, but because their creed is also invalid.
Well, not the Shia, but anyone who does wiping.
Yes. I mean, if a person is doing masa, if you know with certainty that a person is wiping on their sock, and you've seen that, and there's you have a reasonable reason that, this person definitely is wiping over the sock. So there's two scenarios over here. One scenario is, the masjid that is diligent when it comes to people washing their feet. You have a certain demographic in masjids, right? You'll have people, they come in, they'll wash their feet. The imam will also wash his feet. There's no problem in that masjid. The problem occurs when you're in another masjid, where the imam is not so particular. Right? So in that kind of situation, rather than cause a ruckus and create a problem, it's just better to offer salat behind such an imam and repeat the prayer afterwards quietly. Why is there a need to cause a ruckus and fitna? If you have the opportunity, then advise the imam. Let the imam know that, look, what you do privately, that's alhamdulillah, no problem. You want to wipe your feet as much as you want when you're at home. But when you're in the masjid, there are people who subscribe to different opinions. Right? Try to be inclusive of everyone. Try to be inclusive of everyone. For example, according to the Hanafi school, and this is my personal, I'm basing this off of my personal habit. According to the Hanafi school, in the third and fourth rakat, Fatiha is not wajib. Fatiha is not wajib. You don't have to read Surah Al-Fatiha. But I read it because I know that people behind me, right, they subscribe to the Shafi opinion. They subscribe to the Shafi opinion. Yes, for the imam it's not wajib. So they subscribe to the Shafi opinion. I don't want their salat to be invalid. Same thing with wudu, according to the Shafi madhab, right? Their school tells us, right, that when you're washing the fara'id, when you're washing those body parts that are fard, you have to have niyyah at that time. The niyyah has to run parallel with washing those parts. So I make a point of that. Right? Keeping your feet on the ground during the sujood. This is a fard according to the Shafi madhab. You have to bend the toes and make sure they're touching the ground properly. The Hanafi school is not as strict. Right? The Maliki school, they have dalk in wudu. They have to, in wudu, this is called dalk, like rubbing. I make it a point to do that. So try to be inclusive. As an imam, you're supposed to be inclusive because there's many different people that are offering salat behind you from many different parts of the world that follow and that subscribe to different schools, that subscribe to different opinions. Try to be inclusive of everyone. This is the responsible thing to do as an imam.
Is rubbing fard in Shafi or?
According to the Maliki school, dalk is fard.
Okay.
Dalk is fard, according to the Maliki. Yes, yeah. According to the Maliki school, it is fard.
No, found them during the wudu.
That's according to the Maliki school. Yes, according in wudu. Yes, not according to the Hanafi school.
So Sheikh, as per Hanafi school, on leather we can white,
Yes,
but without leather, no white. We have to wash.
you can use. There's those socks that you can get. Sealskin socks. They're made by. There's a certain fabric that is used, so you can use that. I believe our Imam Sheikh Muhammad uses those socks too. So those are valid to wipe on. They're called sealskins. You can get them off of Amazon. So they're a good substitute for leather socks because leather socks, they're not malleable.
And very thick.
Very thick.
Yeah.
So these actually do the job. They're for winter. They're designed for winter. So you can do masa on them.
Can you text those ones?
Yeah, inshallah. Yeah, inshallah. I can do that.
All this while I've been like doing most on my regular socks. On my regular socks because I do wudu once Fajr and I do my socks. I'm at my work, I go around and when I do my end of wudu, I just try to not take off my socks because I wet the floor and just clean the white on the socks. So that's completely invalid, you're saying.
Yeah, I'm saying that would be a problem.
Inshallah, going forward, I will avoid that.
Yeah, it's always best to wash the feet unless you're wearing, as I said, the alternative is sealskins.
Yes,
Because-
I can say that, right?
So you can get them off of Amazon.
There is another substitute as well over here, and it's a little bit complicated.
Okay.
Instead of socks, you can get those leather shoes that is, above the ankles.
Right.
And you can do masa on the shoes.
The problem with those shoes are that one of the requirements is that it's impossible to do sujood with them. And it's impossible to sit and fulfill some of the arkan when you go into sujood. So the toes, they're not really touching the ground. So those shoes
Yeah.
would be, I would say it's an issue. I mean, the masa would be
It's a very
valid.
common practice in Muslim world, especially those who are in travel.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Again, it's not malleable. The leather, the shoes is not malleable. So if you're doing masa on like steel-toed boots or something, yeah, sure, the masa might be valid, but the sujood, that would be an issue.
What are the characteristics
Of what?
to have the leather socks if you want to replace that with?
So there's three things that the jurists they look at. They look at thickness, walkability, if that is such a word, that can you walk in them. So walking in them doesn't necessarily mean that you have to walk in them for 3 miles or 1 mile or whatever, right? Walking in them means it's just based on estimation that, are they going to rip, right? Are they going to rip? And second, do they stand on their own, right? Can they stand on their own? Like, for example, the socks that I have on right now, they can't stand on their own, right? They can't stand on their own. So because they're not that thick. So these are what we would call, regular socks, cotton socks. So these are the three characteristics. So they apply these requisites and these conditions onto thick socks. So if those thick socks fulfill, the requirements of standing on its own, water not penetrating, and walking in them, for 1 mile or 3 miles, I forget the number, it would be okay. Yeah. And again, this is just based on my own judgment and assessment. I think perhaps the socks that are available at Al-Bean, they're made of wool. They're made of merino wool. They might fulfill those requirements. But again, it would be best to have, the Darul Ifta take a look at them to see if they fulfill the requirements.
Going back to the Fara'id,
Yes.
Did you mention the order?
Yes. So the order is face, arms, masa, and washing the feet. That is the order. Yeah. So the order that is mentioned in the Quran, basically. So فَاغْسِلُوا وُجُوهَكُمْ وَأَيْدِيَكُمْ إِلَى الْمَرَافِقِ وَامْسَحُوا بِرُؤُوسِكُمْ وَأَرْجُلَكُمْ إِلَى الْكَعْبَيْنِ.
On the face,
Yeah.
how much you was up, like traveling, you have a beard, you have the hair over here.
Yes.
How much you want to make sure that the water is good.
So your question is actually coming about the beard. If a person,
sometimes people have hair on hair here.
Yes. So that actually is coming when a person has a thick beard, when a person has a thin beard. What constitutes a thick beard? What constitutes a thin beard? Because the washing is going to be according to the type of beard a person has. So that inshallah is coming ahead.
And the wash for the head is enough on the surface, on the hair only. You don't need to go to the skin.
No. It's wiping. It's wiping on the hair. It's not washing the hair. Wiping on the hair. وَامْسَحُوا بِرُؤُوسِكُمْ. It comes in the Quran. وَامْسَحُوا. So we do masa, right? We wipe it. So we don't wash. Although if a person, there is a juristic text that mentions, for example, if a person goes outside having washed 3 of the 4 body parts and he goes outside and it's raining and his hair becomes wet because of the rain, his wudu would be complete because that's like washing. It's washing is above wiping, right? So it's fulfilled. The fard is fulfilled.
So last time you said that istinja can be found as well.
Yes.
Sometimes this 4 can go to 5. That's right.
For what?
For wudu.
For wudu?
Yeah.
No, this is related specifically to wudu. Istinja is different.
But istinja is part of the wudu.
No, it's not part of the wudu. Istinja is not part of the wudu.
It is not?
No. The fara'id are taken. The fara'id are taken from the verse of the Quran.
The ayah,
Yeah. So it doesn't mention anything more than the 4. So Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala does not mention anything more than the 4. Anything more than the 4. So the sunan of wudu. There's no wajibat according to the Hanafi school. There's only sunan in the wudu. This is based off of the hadith of Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam and how he taught the Sahaba wudu.
So then why we say the istinja?
So this istinja is fard. It's not related to the wudu. It's related to cleanliness. It has nothing to do with wudu. It's related to our cleanliness. It's related to tahara.
Generally.
Yes.
Day to day.
Like ghusl. Like ghusl sometimes is fard, right?
Yeah.
So same thing with istinja. Sometimes it's fard. If there's impurity that does tajawuz, it's fard. You have to wash.
And the wudu touching the Musaf, the Quran.
Yes.
And there is opinion as well as if the Quran is,
To my knowledge, according to all 4 schools, one cannot touch wudu, one cannot touch the Quran without wudu. The opinion of it's a fringe opinion to my understanding. Those scholars that allow touching the Quran without wudu, right? But according to the 4 schools, it is to touch the Mus'haf, to touch the Quran, one must be in the state of wudu.
No, I'm saying the Quran is with the translation. They didn't go. There's the Quran there.
Then you would have to look at
half of the Quran only is like a section.
So you have Arabic and then you have the translation.
Yeah.
The preponderant opinion in the Hanafi school, you have to be in the state of wudu. Yeah, that's the preponderant opinion.
And the reading is not, right? Just touching, right?
Yeah, just touching. Yeah. Reading, one does not have to be in the state of wudu. Although, if a person is in the state of greater impurity, where a bath is necessary, then one cannot read the Quran.
Cannot read.
Yes.
But I have seen many people make the tayammum just to read the Quran or touch the Quran.
While water is available?
While water is kind of available.
Perhaps it's possible that they're unable to use water. Maybe they have eczema or something.
Actually, I think they try to do it for ease. I mean, the water is available.
They try to do it for
Like
ease?
Easy, yeah.
I mean, if water is available, then you should do wudu. There's no reason to do tayammum. Tayammum is only a substitute when water is unavailable.
Are you going to discuss the details of the masa later? Like whether it's one hand or two hands?
Yeah, that's coming. That's part of the sunnah. Yeah.
When you describe 1/4, you use
Yeah.
one hand. So,
Yeah.
but
So that's-
usually we do two hands.
Yes. Yes. That's coming in the sunnah section.
How about touching the Quran and the phone?
That's fine. Yeah. Because it's you can say it's a reflection. So it's kind of like, you know, you have a mushaf and you put it and you know, the image of the mushaf is reflected on, let's say, a window or something. Just like touching that. It's fine. And plus there's a barrier. So it's like putting glass on you know, page of the Quran and touching it. No problem.
So, sir, here,
Yeah.
do we have to wudu for reading on the app as well?
No. No.
So, can I start reading even if I'm like traveling? And
Absolutely. Yeah.
Make it easier. Yeah.
So what about like wearing gloves, say, so for female who has the menstruation, they can wearing gloves and touching the Quran?
Yes. Yeah. So if they're, for example, hafiza, then they would have to, if they are reciting for the purpose of muraja'a, right? They're reviewing, it would be permissible. But if they're reciting for the purpose of taqarrub, qurb, you know, thawab and reward, then that is not permissible. Do you see the difference? So one is you're reviewing the Quran based on revision, muraja, right? And then one is when you're reading the Quran because you want to obtain reward. Right? So the first is permissible, the second is not.
For a student is permissible because they are reviewing.
Of course, yeah. And plus, if if 5 to 10 days you're not reading, then your Quran is you're going to forget.
Not to harp on the socks and the wiping too much, but it seemed like you distinguished between the shoes and the leather and
Yes.
waterproofness and all that.
Yes.
So is there also then the part where the toes have to touch the ground? So I guess the simpler form of the question would be,
Yes.
if I have waterproof leather shoes on
Yes.
and I do masa on them,
Yes.
and I take those shoes off
Yes.
and then pray,
So
is that
you would have to wash your feet.
giving the system